Why?
So you can join us.
What the
We've poured through every frame of every Pluribus teaser and trailer.
We've watched countless interviews with Vince Gilligan and Ray Seahorn.
We've read numerous articles.
And we even called this number that Vince himself advertised on the side of a food truck carrying donuts.
And this is everything we know about the new science fiction series Pluribus from the creator of Breaking Bad, coming out on November 7th on Apple TV.
This includes what information they have officially released about the plot.
What we know about the production, including a little bit about creator, writer, producer Vince Gilligan and star Ray Seahorn.
All of the details in the teasers and trailers that you might have missed.
Theories we already have.
As well as what makes us excited about it and why we think you should be too.
So let's jump in. The most miserable person on Earth tries to save the world from happiness. So let's start off with the plot and what we know about this, because Vince Gilligan has deliberately made the choice to release as little information as possible. And I think if you just watch the teasers and the trailers, there's a lot that you won't know. But I do think that there is more information that kind of came out in articles, that have interviewed Vince, as well as, interviews on TV that he's done.
First off, the trailer we see, it's very much just like everybody is in on something and our main protagonist is not in on it. It seems like she's the only one that is on the outside of whatever is happening, which seems like everybody is infected with a form of happiness.
Yeah, and I think that based off of what we've read, there's two potential different takes on this. One is that there is some kind of infection. And then there's another one that I read. I think this one was from the New York Times, saying a mysterious signal from outer space. And I think that there's the possibility that both are right in one way or another. It is possible that something can cause a disease.
Right.
So it could be something from space that causes a disease, or it even just could be that there is an understanding of it early on when it first happens. And then that the understanding of it evolves over time. Just we dealt with that in our lives with COVID, where there was very little information in the beginning, and scientists are doing the best they can to get information, but they were definitely wrong on some things. And then later that information kind of evolved.
Yeah. And it does seem like there's more than one, it does focus on Carol, the main character, as the protagonist of the show, but it does seem there's a handful of people that aren't infected by it. And it also seems like the whatever's doing the infecting, whether they're all on the same page or not, they don't understand why Carol and this other group is not being affected.
Yeah, and I think, the trailers kind of made me wonder whether we're in a strange place, whether or not Carol ends up somewhere weird, but kind of reading the articles, I think it makes it much more clear. This is our world. It was filmed in Albuquerque. We'll kind of get to that. I think that it probably happens in Albuquerque. So I don't think that it's like she landed in a weird place, anything like that, and is dealing with that situation. Because originally watching the trailers, I think it kind of gave me vibes of old BBC show called The Prisoner, where this guy is an ex-spy is abducted and ends up in this place called The Village, where it also had these kind of vibes of everybody is kind of on the same wavelength and they're trying to get this one guy to agree that he's this different person and kind of live this life like the Village. And it kind of gave me those vibes, but then reading the information from the interviews, I'm definitely getting different vibes. And they even said that the first episode kind of pays homage to the Body Snatchers, but then I think it does kind of move on from there.
I mean, it does seem because Carol is a novelist, a romantic novelist in this show. And it does seem that she's not transported to somewhere new. It is very much that one day she goes to sleep, wakes up, and then everything is different. And we have all of these weird things of no wars, no dictators. It does seem like they are trying to serve Carol, anything that she wants or needs, to try to get her to meld with them in a way.
Yeah.
So they do seem very pleasing, they are live to serve in a way.
Right. It's interesting because it presents this utopia, and I think that it's going to ask us these big questions about whether or not a utopia is okay if you have to like cede your free will in order to do it. And I think there'll be interesting kind of takes on both sides of this, as far as like, well, I mean, what if everything is perfect? What if there's no crime, nobody in prison, no dictators? Is that worth it? Or is it more important to have free will? I think there's going to be very interesting questions that it's going to ask.
Yeah, I think it's also going to deal a little bit with like individuality. Like, is it better to be like your own personal self and like kind of live life the way you want to live it, or live the way everybody else lives it? So everything is uniform, everything is the same. It's funny. I don't know if you ever watched Fairly Odd Parents back in the day.
No, I watched a few episodes.
So there's this like one episode where Timmy wishes for like everything to be the same, like no good, bad. And he like is wished into this like gray blob world. And so like you can't tell people apart. Everybody's just gray blobs. Nothing is noticeable. Like there's no like emotion. Everything is just like gray blob because there's nothing to like juxtapose and compare and contrast with, basically. So it gives me that kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's talk about the production of this. It's another one filmed in Albuquerque.
Yeah, and do you know why it was in Albuquerque?
Why was that?
So that Vince Gilligan could work with the same crew that he worked with on Breaking Bad. And so he wanted to give them jobs. He knows that they didn't need jobs, but like he's worked so closely with this crew that like as they've been filming Pluribus, they could be like, oh, something like we did on that one episode in Breaking Bad. And everybody knows they can like short speak. It's a great crew he loves working with. And so he wanted to work with them again.
I love the fact that they built this set from the ground up instead of using real locations, because I read that, you know, one of the issues with Breaking Bad is that those are real homes in Albuquerque. Mm-hmm. And people like to do like a mecca, a trip of like revisiting the Breaking Bad locations. And some people like to recreate the like pizza scene on top of the house. And so that house has actually had to, I think, like build up their kind of security in order to be able to enjoy a personal life. And Vince didn't want to do that to anybody else. Plus there's some big special effects that are going to happen, and they, you know, would like to be able to do that by having it built from the ground up. So I thought that was kind of interesting, to the reasons to do that and doing that, because that couldn't have been cheap. No.
And he actually talked about his production team that built the cul-de-sac, and he's very impressed because typically like when you film these kind of, you know, like if you're building a little town, if you're not using some of the houses, they are like facades where it's just like the front of a house that's just held up by 2x4s. And these are actually real houses that are all built. Like every house in this cul-de-sac that Carol lives in is a real house that you could live in.
That's interesting. It reminds me, the opposite reminds me of like Blazing Saddles, where they set up the fake town, you know, but it's just the fronts, you know. If you go behind, you literally see just like 2x4s and then like slanted 2x4s to like hold up these like fake buildings.
It's pretty good.
He apparently has like a lot of attention to detail, and so, you know, even down to like light switches, like he is the kind of person that really is a detail-oriented person. And, you know, once again, like you mentioned, they like built this from the ground up and not just like the outsides. This is a big budget, you know, at least in one estimate I read, it's like 13 to 15 million per episode.
Wow.
Apple has already gone in on 2 seasons of this. So we are guaranteed for it not to end on some like unsatisfying cliffhanger and then for it to like not be picked up, or because there's like those like long negotiations that maybe there's like that long gap in between. Like the nice thing is he can already start working on season 2 as soon as he is able to. They don't have to wait for it to get greenlit.
Right. And it is very cool that, so he was working with his agent at the time, and he was workshopping it to be sold as 2 seasons right off the bat. Like, he wouldn't just take it as a single season. And the people at Apple were originally the ones that worked at AMC when Breaking Bad first started. So he was basically pitching his show Pluribus to the people that gave him the chance on Breaking Bad. And so he mentions in an interview that it felt like returning to old form and being able to, like, almost like a reunion of sorts, to like take the ease off of kind of diving into this new project.
Right. And I think it's, it was nice for him because it is different from what he's been doing in the past. Way back, he was doing X-Files, but as far as like what he's been recently doing for a decent amount of time, doing Breaking Bad, doing the prequel to Breaking Bad, doing the movie, that came after Breaking Bad, kind of doing all of those different parts. One of the tough parts of doing like Better Call Saul was the fact that originally he thought it'd be easy knowing where it was going to end. And then he realized that it actually made things a lot tougher because like they were boxed in. They couldn't do something to raise tensions, like make you wonder, is he going to get his like finger cut off or something like that? Like we know how he ends up. They're boxed in many ways. And this is like a completely new world. And so that's something that he very much is like looking forward to. And it's something he's been working on for a while.
Yeah, no, I heard that, he's excited to get back in sci-fi. Like, he was originally like, he had the idea of this script and what it was going to look like, but ultimately didn't know like what genre it would work in until he realized that sci-fi was the only way that he could tell this story, which is cool because, I'm excited to see Vince get back into sci-fi. The episodes with X-Files are some of the best ones, in my opinion. And to see him, get greenlit 2 seasons of a cool sci-fi show, very exciting. I'm also excited that he seems excited about writing about a hero instead of a villain of Walter White. And Better Call Saul, he's more of like an anti-hero. He's not really good, bad. He's kind of selfish in a lot of ways. And so he's very excited about writing a hero character again. And I know Carol's not perfect. She seems like could be an odd choice for a hero because of, she does seem cynical, but she is more heroic than like previous characters that he's written about.
Yeah. And I think that, outside of maybe kids movies and like occasional movies, I think that the like current look on the world, it seems very antiquated to write people that are kind of perfect heroes. I don't think that you have a lot of Captain America type stories where they like are perfect people. I think that most people kind of understand that the world is a very complex place, and even the best people make difficult decisions and are imperfect people. And so I think having this kind of like complex hero, I think, is something that will be really exciting and really fun to have somebody that I think will show this really interesting side of this kind of like psychological sci-fi drama, will help like really bring in interesting perspective. So let's talk about some of the hidden details that we've seen in the teasers, trailers, and or theories that we've come from, watching that and or like reading any of the articles that we've read.
So I kind of like the vibe we're getting. It does seem like we're getting this almost like last person on Earth alive, like almost like I Am Legend, or I forget what the movie that it was originally based off of, but a single person surviving in this, also kind of like a weird take on like a zombie apocalypse almost, where like everybody is infected with this virus and ultimately they want Carol to join them, but she's trying to like fight for her own survival of being her individual self. So it has like these interesting post-apocalyptic tropes that we've seen, done many different ways, but this is a very new take on it, which seems interesting.
Yeah. And I think there's like really interesting consequences that emerge from a world like this. They hinted at it in the trailers where when she's talking to like the DHL guy and asking, if I asked you for this, would you say yes? If I asked you for a I don't remember what it was, like a bazooka or something like
A
that.
bazooka, a tank.
Bazooka, a tank, and that could have just been theoretical, but they didn't linger on the shots for too long, but she is driving a police car and it doesn't seem like she's being chased. It seems like that is perfectly okay. I think that's one of the side effects of this type of utopia is like a total trust. They're not worried about crime. So it's not like, oh, if you had a police car, there are terrible things you could do. It's like, sure, go ahead, take the police car. So it's interesting seeing the potential kind of side effects of a world like that.
But also in a few trailers, I feel like I've seen some blood on Carol.
Yeah.
And so it does seem like she has maybe either attacked or killed some of these happy people. And even with her still having the blood on her, it doesn't seem like the rest of the people are reacting or holding her to account. It really seems like she can kind of do whatever she wants to this group without any consequences.
Yeah, I can't tell exactly where this stuff is, when and where this stuff is happening. Because like you mentioned that there's like explosions and burning things. A lot of those shots do seem like they are in, not all of them, but a lot of those shots do seem like they are in Spain. And that is one of the locations that I did read that they were filming in. So, at one point there's a shot where there's I think at least 4 fires that are raging in this city. And, that's when we see also what looks like a body being dragged. It is possible that this is before everything happens. And then we see the after this virus, whatever it is, we see that change. Or maybe the few people that are resistant to it are kind of curmudgeon-y people. And so they do terrible things to test if they can. It's hard for me to tell exactly where things fit in. And then with the blood, the Sorry About the Blood teaser did have her leaving what looked like, it was a beautiful day, well lit, and there's birds chirping. So it makes it seem kind of utopian, but she has the blood, and it said something about sorry about the blood, something maybe we'll do what we can to make this right. I wonder if this is related to the tests that they're running on her to try to find out what's wrong with her. Right. So that they can fix her, so they can get her to join us.
And there is a scene with agar, which is what you kind of put on, you put viruses on and test the spread of it, and you can put other treatments to it to, see how much the spread does. So it does feel like it's a virus. Now, one thing I can't decide yet when I've looked at this group and how they interact is it a hive mind? We see that they're all happy and they're all content with each other, but is it also a little bit like a hive mind? That when she's talking to what looks like maybe the president over the TV and her phone, is that her communicating with all of the happy people? Can she interact with one person and then everybody knows what she's up to? This is one thing that has seemed a little possible to me. Right.
People are walking in very uniform lines. People are doing activities at the same time, which is one of the reasons why it looks like the grocery store is empty. It looks like maybe people do all of that at the same time. People greet her in chorus when they say, hey, Carol. So it's hard to tell whether or not that is habits that emerge from being happy and subservient, that they've just accepted certain structures being put on their lives. And that's kind of created these habits that make them seem in sync. Or if, you're saying, there's something else going on and it's more like a hive mind where there's some level of control from something else. It's interesting because, Vince claims that the twist is that there is no twist. And I think that could be true. I think that they could just have this interesting premise and it allows for very interesting questions to be asked. And they just don't want those questions to be surprised. But I also could see that as a way to try and trick us into lulling us into some peace and quiet so that they can surprise us. Or even if there's no true twist, I do think there will be unexpected moments. That doesn't technically have to be a twist. That can just be you didn't think this all the way through, and you never could have seen coming the like natural progression that like this brings about. And that's less of a twist. You can, I mean, like if you think about Breaking Bad, I feel like that was a slow progression into being a bad person. And you saw it happen bit by bit, you know, and
Right.
it led to some big surprises. But at the same time, it was like we knew it was headed that way the whole time. Like
Right.
we could see him making this descent.
I mean, I feel like there has to be a bunch of unexpected stuff because I feel like the whole premise is very much like this makes no sense. Like, where did it come from? Like, and there might not be a twist. It might be like a very simple answer, be like, this is just what happened. But still, like, the fact that it is such an odd thing to happen makes me believe that there's going to be some surprises along the way of like how it happened. Why are some people not affected? And, you know, kind of going back to the hive mind thing, you would think that if the virus was good, right? And there were like a couple outliers, you wouldn't need all these you wouldn't care about all these outliers. Like, okay, they'll just do their own thing and then they'll be dead and we'll reproduce and yada, yada, yada. But they are very invested in figuring out why they are unaffected. So between both of those, I feel like there has to be like, you know, a surprise of why they're not infected or why they're different. So I do think we are going to get some cool surprises, excitement that Vince is being cheeky about.
I think so. Let's talk about why we're excited about this show and why we think that you should potentially be excited about this show.
So I'm definitely excited because it feels like Severance in that way that we get to kind of like talk about like, what does it mean to be yourself? What does it mean to have memories? Like, should any mark and outie mark, you know, have equal rights? And I think that this show, like with individuality, misery, how you deal with the world, I think is going to really bring up some really interesting questions and thought-provoking ideas.
You know, I think that's definitely an interesting parallel with Severance, although I also see big differences with it, because if Vince is being honest about there not being, the twist is that there's no twist. If Vince is being honest about that, then I think that means that there will be a much bigger focus on those philosophical questions. And I think that there are such weird mysteries in Severance that a lot of people can get hyper focused on that, you know, like what's up with the goats? What's
Right.
up with this? What's up? You know, like they have a whole list of questions they have. And so I feel like a lot of the like philosophical things or questions are pushed down, even though they are such great philosophical questions. And I love them.
Yeah.
And I think if there really is no twist here, then I think this is asking very interesting questions. And the cool thing is, I think this might be very kind of open-ended and up to interpretation and not a right answer thing. You know, I think it might portray some situations that kind of make you wonder, maybe ceding free will would be good.
Right.
And I think it'll put people on very different sides of the fence on this.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of if we even have free will now, like there are vast amount of people that disagree on that topic. Like, is everything a
Right.
choice or do we have the illusion of choice? And then like, if we actually took free will away from people, is that in a way its own dictatorship? And do we want a dictatorship? Like there is a lot of interesting questions and ways that this can go that I feel like, which is really cool about, you know, Vince Gilligan working on the show. Like he's a great writer, great attention to details. So I think that because of the way he does things and his style, like even Breaking Bad had philosophical questions of like,
Yeah.
you know, is it okay to turn to a life of crime to pay your hospital bills and treat your cancer? And I think that had a lot of philosophical questions, even though the main character was a complete dick. But now we have this backdrop, which a little bit more sci-fi. We have more of a hero. I think that we could get some really compelling questions, and I'm excited for 2 seasons of it.
I know. I do wonder whether or not this is like allegorical. And I know that, Vince and Ray have said that this is not an allegory. And I do wonder whether or not part of that is like they don't want to turn certain audiences off. They don't want, people to think that they are bad mouthing one party or another party.
Sure.
But it is hard not to think that this is not somehow an allegory, because in the, I think the New York Times article, they got to do a tour of the set, and there's one of the lending libraries on the cul-de-sac, and it include a copy of How Democracy Dies. And there's also writings from the 18th century philosopher David Hume. They said that the first episode has big homage to The Body Snatchers, which many people believe was an allegory about like the Red Scare at the time. And so I do wonder whether or not, part of this is not just commentary on free will and happiness, but also if there is a grain of that allegory, but they want people to, maybe they're putting it in subtly, and they don't want to turn people off because they don't want people to assume that they are saying one side is wrong or another side is wrong. Like, this could be an allegory for right here, right now, but still not say like this is wrong or this is right. It could just be asking questions.
Yeah. I mean, you could even look at it almost as like a rapture type situation. Like, everybody gets raptured into going into this utopia, and then there's like a handful of people that are left behind, and, people that are raptured want everybody to come with them. So like I think that's what's exciting about it, right? Like, I think it might not be directly, saying one thing about one thing, but it could be just creating these great questions, these great dialogues to have with people. I think this is going to be like a show that would be a great water cooler show of like, you go into work the next day, you're hanging at water cooler, you're like, hey, did you watch the new episode of Pluribus? Yeah, it really like made me think about like all this crazy stuff. Like, what's going on? What's happening? Why is Carol like this? Like, I think it has the ability to generate really cool buzz and commentary about it.
I'm also super amped about the way that they are marketing it. There's 2 things I think are cool. So early on, that like I think 3 months ago, they had this phone number on the side of this food truck that was giving out donuts. It looked like it was at something like Comic-Con maybe, but I'm not 100% sure. And they're encouraging people to call the phone number. And when you call it, they start sending you texts, which are these like cryptic texts that I think kind of like get you in the vibe of this. So there's stuff like, please let us know if you have any more trash you need picked up, Carol. Hope you're enjoying the flight, Carol. May we offer you a drink? Thanks for your patience, Carol. We know it's frustrating to feel like you've been kept in the dark. Hopefully that will change soon. And did that help clear things up for you, Carol? So I feel like it like creates this like cryptic vibe that kind of like gets you in the mood for it. But then the other part that I absolutely love, and I feel like there are very few people that can do this outside of Vince Gilligan, is there is so little information, and that actually makes me happy.
Yes.
I get why you don't want to do that with most people. If it's a movie, my money is precious, and I don't want to spend money on a movie and then find out that it's like a big dud and a waste of time. So I do want to know some information about it. If it's a show, that's like a big time commitment, and I don't want to waste all this time. But I think that like in this desperate attempt to like get us to give them our time or money, whichever it is, that oftentimes they give out too much information, and I feel spoiled, and I feel like there are these things that are supposed to be big surprises that aren't.
Right.
And I love the fact that like there's very little here for us, and I think that is going to make some really cool moments.
Yeah. And Vince Gilligan was intentional about this. He wanted it to be as little information as possible because of this exact reason, where everything is the whole story is told in the trailers and you know everything. And I saw this one interview that he was talking about seeing the movie LA Confidential and he had not seen a trailer for it. He hadn't known anything about it. And a buddy just said like, hey, you want to go see a movie? And he was like, sure. What's it called? And he's like, LA something. And it was the best movie he has ever seen in his life, that he had said in the interview. And so I think that when you go in completely blind, there's no expectations. You're not hyping it up or like undervaluing it. And so you go in with no expectations, and you can just kind of like ride that journey and like take in that information as you watch it. And I think that's what he was intentionally trying to do. And that is another reason so hyped about this show.
Absolutely. And that is why we are excited about Pluribus.
And if you are too, please consider subscribing. That way you don't miss out on our weekly breakdowns of episodes.
And if you've enjoyed other sci-fi shows on Apple TV, then you might enjoy our breakdowns on Silo, Foundation, or this playlist for Severance right here.